Hey guys, this is Calm. I'm gonna do a live commentary, but not my own games this time. It's gonna be on Fusion's games. He's playing in a 5-minute tournament. It's under 1700, and it's a 5-round tournament. This is the second round. The first round he got a bye, so there's no point recording that. He starts with e4 and we have a Petrov. The way I always used to play against this is I just play knight f3 back, and then after knight takes e4, play knight c3. Which I kind of like, because after takes and d-takes, we have a very fast long castling position. And it kind of, I don't know, it always did well for me. I thought at one point Fusion also picked it up, but I guess not in this case. I'm sure knight c4 is some other commonly played line. I kind of recognise it, but I don't really have any experience playing it. You see here he's just kind of got the same positions, but he played knight c4 instead of knight f3. So in some ways this is an advantage in that his knight can't get pinned by the bishop, but at the same time when you want long castling, I never really think of that as bad factors. I can play a quick h3 g4 and I don't worry about pushing my pawns out too far forwards because I'm castling queenside, so kingside safety is these pawns want to attack anyway. Mate threat here in h7. I expect g6. And it seems like Fusion's basically going for this quick attack. But yeah, his knight, I would say, is a little bit to the wrong side. The advantages are that when he's going for this kingside attack, he can push the f-pawn quickly, but I'm not sure how useful it is here. Queen h6 is interesting. It's a good idea for a quick h4, h5 here, maybe. Wouldn't be surprised to see him play that. You can long castle first as well, which he does. The only thing about Queen h6 is that it allows this bishop development here. I would have expected it by rook e8 and bishop f8, because that helps develop black's rook, but the way black did it is, it's also okay. Given the Queen h6 here allows the tempo gain after bishop g7. So black's just developed normally. He'll be pretty happy with his position. This is kind of what you aim for in a Petrov. Just quick development. I'd be interested to see what he does here. h5 is playable, but then you have to worry about the f3 g4 push. And again, this can be under a lot of pressure here. So the way black's going to try and counteract that is with counterplay on the queen side, and I actually think this is probably a good idea, because I think this attack from white comes pretty quickly, so the best way to try and stop it is his own attack this side. It also helps open up this bishop, and you can just kind of distract. I think a good plan for black here can be Queen f6 at some point to trade off to stop this attack, and then he's still going to have this attack along here. The bishop will be very strong along this diagonal. Note you can't take on a2 because b3 would trap the bishop. b5 hangs here, but it's unclear how big an issue that is, because rook b8 would allow quite a big attack along here. Probably it's worth saving this pawn though, because b3 can be played at points by white, and if black overtakes on c3, yes, he's given a pawn back, but he's got rid of his double pawns, which is pretty cool. See, a6 is kind of a slow move, so I think that bodes well for Fusion, and that he's getting on with his attack much quicker. So yeah, I like this Queen f6 idea to trade off the queens. If I was Fusion, I'd probably play something like Queen h2 here, with the idea of keeping this attack up. We do have to worry about b4 there, but my response to that would just be knight b2 probably, knight b1 rather. Yeah, we have to think about bishop takes a2 there, but it's kind of counteracted by the fact that we have a very quick h-pawn attack, so it would have been kind of interesting. Queen e4 hits the knight. b4 is an interesting way against that. We can't take because of queen takes b2 mate. It's probably best not to take this knight on c6, because then they're taking on a3 hurts our pawn structure. So probably this is best as fusion is played. D5, stops the attack on the knight. So it can be useful. It can also be useful in combination with knight a5 to c4, maybe. Whenever I play against fusion, I generally play with an increment, which gives me a lot more time to commentate these games. So yeah, as it is, fusion's kind of bailed out with the queen trade, which means that he's not going to be under threat of losing via a mate, but it does mean that his pawn structure is going to be worse based on this. I would have probably, I guess he had to take with the pawn here because otherwise d4, forking the bishop and the knight. But it looks like black's position is preferable here now. This bishop's just really strong. We never really have any threats of mating along the h-file after h takes, so black should definitely play h takes. Taking towards the middle, because after rook at dh1, we can't hit h7 because of the bishop. Fusion needs to try and put something on d4 to block the attacking potential of this bishop, and aim for a trade-off whereby he can get the c-pawn onto the d-pawn, fixing his pawn structure. He should do that via a combination of moves like, well, just the immediate bishop d4 is fine, but then in future after, say, rook b8, you want to play knight d2 because it protects against here, and also we can play knight b3 later on, threatening to go to c5 or d4 itself. In fact, maybe even want to play that move, well, you can't play it first because the bishop takes c3, so I go for bishop d4 here. You might be worried about rook b2, but I don't think it's that big an issue. Okay, so he's gone for the bishop trade this way instead, but I think just bishop f6, for example, it hits with tempo on the rook, and it keeps along this diagonal. This move, I'm not sure about that. I guess he thinks he can play it because he can just play knight c2 and then bishop takes c3, which I guess is better if he can. I wonder whether there was anything else that fusion could have done about it. Maybe not, so maybe this was good. Yeah, it looks that way. Bishop takes a6, regains the pawn. This bishop is just awfully placed now. Generally when you want to trade a bishop, which is good for them, you want to do it on that diagonal within which they are strong. So that would have been across this a1 to h8 diagonal in this case. This guy's playing really well for a 1300, it's kind of surprising. So we do this to win the pawn back after rook a7, a2 will hang, but we can kind of protect it against with some rook a4 move. Then the idea after the doubling of rooks is we're basically just going to lose our bishop, because after rook b5 obviously you can take twice on a4, so it's actually a bad idea. We should just move this bishop somewhere. So bishop d3 is played, is probably the best move. After the captures now, I think we have to play something like, well, yeah, this, because the problem is after knight b3, something like d4 there, the bishop hits it, and as soon as it moves we have this rook a1 problem. So black is bringing in his knight to the attack now. It's also going to allow him to move this c-pawn forwards. This is not looking good for fusion so far. See, now rook a1 can be met by king e2. I'm not sure what black's going to do for that. Maybe he should just go for the trade of the bishop, and then he can take on f2, which looks the most logical. I feel like these games are a little too fast to commentate on, but let me know how well I do or whatever. In fact, after knight takes bishop, pawn takes, rook b1 is mate, so, well, it's not mate because of bishop c3, but then you have either the doubling of, well, Yeah, I think just a doubling of the rooks, because then when the king moves, which is the only way to save, you can take on h1 and win a rook, which is essentially the same. The idea is we actually get fusion in on the scope call after the end of the game. So yeah, I think he was ranked about 11th out of 14 players or something in terms of the rating going into this. So I think this would ideally be one he'd win because of the rating. But this guy's played really smoothly for a 1300 actually. Kind of lends me to believe that it's not his true rating, but it seems that he's actually, played a lot of games, and his highest rating is 1475, so maybe he's just having a really good game. Because that's one of the things about chess, you can play someone who's rated way lower than you, but if they just, sometimes they can just play perfectly, and there's nothing really you can do about it. Oh, that's a huge error though, because obviously you meant to trade the rooks there, and now fusion has a chance, if only he didn't have 13 seconds. Easiest way for black to finish is bishop c3 and d4, just to keep up the pressure, and there won't be any way for white to kind of dislodge that pin and mate black in time. Yeah. Because there's no way for the king to escape. Yeah, for example here you have to lose the piece. If it goes to e1 instead, then he'd still be pinned via the bishop. Here he's going for some check, but f6 is an escape square, so it's just not going to work out. Bishop f5 now is the best move in time pressure because you get that extra, check which forces the king to move rather than anything that's pre-moved. If he can get his king to f6 somehow, then he could still do it, but the easiest way is just to, say, play rook d2 and then d3, which is check. Via the bishop, forces the king off the diagonals. Rook e2 check after king e7, so then there'd be no way for the king to cover the escape squares. This is a pretty debatable decision. I guess his plan is just to run now, yeah. Which he manages to do, so. Yeah, if we look back a bit, I don't know, it all seemed fine, but then b5 came quite quickly. That's another disadvantage of this knight c4 line. Not that that was losing the game or anything, but maybe if he thought he was under pressure we should trade earlier here. And then when the queens get traded and the pawns get messed up, black has an edge, c3 falls, and so on. So, okay, so the game ended here. Fusion lost some time, I think. Hi.
Man. Oh, new game already. Bye.
Okay. Okay, so we're on to the second game straight away, because I guess that was the slowest game of the first round. So hopefully you heard him there a bit. I don't know if you actually can, but we'll see. This 2c4 line, I've actually played it once before on the board when I was much younger, and it's just like, can't be dealing with all this Sicilian stuff. I like the way that Fusion's responded best. I just played d6 here. You can also put a knight immediately on d4, and, it's just equal. You should play bishop g4 here, because the bishop doesn't have much potential on these light squared in this game, because you're generally going to play e6 to prevent knight d5. And I prefer that before queen a5, because generally speaking they'll play queen d2. And then you have the chance to trade the bishop for the knight on f3 and mess up their pawn structure. As it is, you play queen c2, which kind of leaves this pin on with the queen, which is why I don't particularly like it. I'm not sure about this immediate knight b4 either. I don't really think we should trade our good bishop for this knight, even though we're doubling his pawns, because he can play a quick d4 in response. But I'm not sure what this knight b4 really accomplishes, especially when the queen's on c2. It's the case that you know, we still have this potential pin on the knight, so we're kind of getting out of this pin for him, if you see what I mean. I mean, one trick here is bishop takes knight, and if he makes the mistake of taking with the queen, you can play knight c2 check, which picks up the rook, because the queen can't take because of the pin. And after queen takes queen, pawn takes queen, we're winning a rook. But what he'd do here is just, you know, take with a pawn. And after... Well, maybe you could do that. So after knight takes c2, we actually hit this queen. And after, say, queen b2, we can play queen takes c3, which is check, which, you know, forces the trade of queens, and the knight can escape. So maybe that is something that could have worked. Yeah, I think so. But as it is, he actually followed up with bishop g4, and now a3. And now the knight a2 stuff doesn't work because, of course, rook takes a2. So knight just hops back. The only advantage being that we've pushed the queen to c1 instead of c2. I'm not sure how much difference that makes. Now bishop e2 is played, and then takes, knight d4. Actually, a lot of moves have been played, so I'm just catching up now. Okay, taking here is generally the best option. Leaving this knight here is one option, but it's very strong there. Okay, and here we don't really want to trade queens because it allows him to fix his pawn structure. We have to be wary of the takes knight though. So I sometimes think a move like a6 here could be good, because even though we're doubling our pawns, we're opening up our rook. Potential to play b5 later on. He's actually taken on b2, which for some reason I missed, but it's kind of dangerous. b5 here, by the way, is good. Because even after rook b1 or something, we could just take the rook, and then we can take the queen next move, so. And in the case of bishop takes knight after b5, which would mean that he's attacking b5 enough times to take it, we can just take with the, or we can take the queen, and then after takes here we can take with the bishop. And then recapture on d4 with the bishop, so I think that leaves us up a pawn maybe. Yeah, I think in general this is a little too fast for future, but we thought we'd just try it. We're both online, so kind of cool idea, something new that we haven't done. So this looks like the wrong rook to me from White's point of view, because now he just drops this a3 pawn. We can go over here. The problem with taking on a3 is, I guess, rook back, but I don't think it's that much finish. You can just put the queen back to the same position, and then it's exactly the same position, but you're an extra pawn up. Queen e2 is played instead. But now I'm thinking what happens is that basically Fusion's just trying to run via g4, and I don't think he particularly needed to do that. And now it seems that actually he's got himself a bit trapped here, because the queen has no good squares to go to. So I mean, b5 is the obvious immediate play. White will sack the rook for this likely, and then we take the f1 rook and pick up the other one here, so it's not too bad. If the queen could move in such a way that it still covered a2, then Fusion would have been in a lot of trouble, but as it is, he can't, so he's fine by, you know, picking up the two rooks this way. I mean, I guess another option is for White to try and keep this attack on with something like queen c3, with the idea that queen a2, rook b2 seems to trap it, but then we have knight e2 check, which would win white's queen via our bishop on g7. So Fusion's playing correctly with this b5 move. It's pretty much the only thing, I think. I'm not sure if he knew the complications of the rook takes immediately when he played it, but it's definitely the best kind of option. Fusion's down on time by about 10 seconds, not too big a deal right now. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting game. I like the setup with the e7, d6, c5 kind of thing, especially against the c4. I mean, this is kind of going from Roxy bind, but because you don't have d4 in, it's just restrictive to white's movements. So I'd say, compared to a normal Sicilian, it's just a bit worse, you know. So, okay, so he's played queen c1 instead. Obviously this means d3 hangs, so I just take that. Queen a2 is still playable as played. I think he just missed that d3 was hanging there. If there had been rook b2 there, we could have taken, and in fact still we can take here. And then after queen takes we have knight e2 check, which will pick up the rook, but actually we'd be losing two pieces there because the bishop can take and then this rook covers this rook. But still seems to be the best option, because otherwise we're kind of squeezed out of the game. Because if on knight b3, white can just trade, and he's, you know, picking up a queen and the knight for just the queen, essentially. So he's gone here, but the bishop can take. So I think knight e2 was the only move there. Well, actually, he's allowed himself to take the queen here, so that was my mistake. I missed that, but the rook takes here, and we're down a piece still. But you know, he's going to get some passed pawns. This is probably a good move from white, just blocking out this pawn, and it's going to allow him to, you know, severely restrict the advancement of black's pawns. Generally speaking, black would have a good time advancing these pawns because there's a strong bishop supporting the a1 square, but without another pawn protecting it, he can just blockade it with the bishop via bishop b1 to a2. So rook's under attack, down to 15 seconds as Fusion. So rook b2, but white should just be looking to trade off this bishop, and then he'd basically be golden. So I think the easiest way is just like rook here, bishop back one, because then this is supported, and then he can play bishop c3. He's actually just sacked this piece for the pawn, which means Fusion's back to equal piece material. In fact, he's up a pawn now, but white definitely didn't need to do that. He's down to 17 seconds himself now, so Fusion actually might have some chances here. I'd be playing moves like bishop d4, yeah, like he has done, just to kind of restrict around the king. And then he should be looking to probably trade these rooks, and then rook b1, because he's going to have the more active rook. Rook b4 now, because you might as well pre-move that. Just because it would have won tempo on the bishop. This stuff, not so useful in time scramble, because you also have to worry about a king move and then something else. But as it is, he's won on time, so I'm going to unmute him. Post-match reaction. Hi!
Sup, yo?
That was a good comeback.
That was like, oh no, my queen is trapped in the many different ways.
Yeah, there are a few ways you could do some knight trick. I didn't actually see the way you did it, but...
Yeah, but I lost a piece.
Yeah, I think you could have taken on d3 after his bishop move. It's hanging, but yeah, you did well in the time trouble.
I was like, no way am I losing to a 1200 after my terrible performance in the first round.
Well, they've both played, like, really decent apart from like the end of this one. And the last one he obviously missed his rook at the end, but by then he had no time anyway.
Yeah.
So you'll just have to take revenge on the others. So I guess you're on 2 out of 3 now, because you got to buy first round.
Yeah. Have to play now. TD play. Challenge. Okay, I'm starting again.
Okay, good luck.
Thanks.
Okay, so we've muted him again. He's white again, he plays e4, he always plays e4, which is fine. Sicilian. He generally plays the open Sicilian, especially against d6. If he gets a pure dragon, that would be like his favourite line ever, because that's what I play, or at least used to play a lot. So he had a ton of practice at it, and he's actually really good against it, so it's probably his performance rating wise by far his best opening, white against the dragon, so that's what we'd be looking to go into. But a6 and e5, I guess this is an idol for some sort, and I don't know what he plays against this, because I don't really play the open Sicilian, and given that I don't really play this against him, I'm not really sure. If we'd had Sveshnikov, I'd have had an idea, because I play that against him sometimes too. But yeah, from what I can just guess by looking at the position, White's play is going to revolve around control over the d5 square and stopping Black from playing it, and Black is going to play b5, knight bd7, knight b6 and so on, and bishop b6, and try and push through that in the end. If he gets to play it, he's probably doing well. If he doesn't, then he's probably not. Given that Fusion's playing pretty fast, I'd imagine this is all theory still. F4 is aggressive, it leaves him with a isolated pawn if Black takes, but he'd have his own one on d6 and it would be pinned via the bishop, so it would be a preferable trade for White, I guess. This f5 move, I mean, it's really aggressive. Imagine we're still in theory, but it looks like we're going to have a very attacking game, which is kind of cool. So bishop c4 is played quickly. King b1, sensible. I'd imagine that, I mean, basically White just wants to throw up his pawns up this side of the board, g4 and h4. Obviously g4 he can take it, so it's unclear how he does that best. Ideally you'd want this rook on the g file, but it's hard to do that because if he moves this knight, then he's blocking his pawns from advancing. But how else does he develop the bishop? g3 is very slow. Maybe you could do that though, g3, bishop g2. Just keep control of the d5 square. It's like more of a positional way to play, but you still have that late game potential of pushing this forwards. Maybe knight g3 is good, just based on the fact that then we can play knight d5 later, because e4 is supported. Or maybe he's going to go for this h3 way to support it. Could have also played this rook to g1, but then, you know, we can't play h4 later, or at least we can, but if this knight ever moves, then the h-pawn would be hanging, and generally speaking, these attacking setups, you want this rook on g1, this one on h1, because then you have both the rooks down both the files, as opposed to this one being on g1 and then preventing this one from getting more into the position. So if d5 is played now, we're covering it 4 times. Black is covering it 1, 2, 3 times, so Black can't play it yet. Which is going to mean that Fusion's going to be able to have time to push in g5, which bodes well for him. If h6 is played to stop it, there's a few ways you could go about it. You could play h4 intending g5, and if it takes on h4 then you could play rook g1. But then maybe bishop takes e3, so kind of awkward. Probably we just see bishop takes h6, we're picking up 2 pawns for it. This knight is in an awkward position, because if this bishop moves to try and defend against the mate, then this knight hangs, we're going to get the rook on g1, so probably that would have been very strong for White. I like the way Fusion's playing this. Knight d5 is good, it's getting more into the game, it allows this knight to come to a better square. I would have definitely taken on d5 with the queen, to keep this d6 as the backward pawn. To do it this way, you really have to justify that this knight is going on to e4, and you need that square for it. and I'm not sure that's the case. It could be if he plays knight c3 now, but as is, he's allowed knight c4, which I really dislike, because once we trade off this bishop, we lose one of our attacking pieces. If we play knight c4, we could have taken it with the bishop, and this bishop hasn't been in our attack, so I would have liked that for white. Up 45 seconds on the clock. I play knight c3 again here. See, knight g3, you can just trade it, and then we're losing attacking pieces, which isn't horrible because we've got decent pawn structure still. But it's not ideal all the same, because it means our attack is going to be harder to execute. It's going to be easier to defend. Black can now defend via the 7th rank quite easily. Fuzion will still try to attack though, he always does pretty much. A move like queen f2 might have been good at some point, to throw in bishop e6. Here definitely taking with the bishop. I mean, we have two bishops, we're going to lose one anyway if we don't take, because he can take on e3, so it makes sense to just get rid of that bishop that we hadn't been doing much with. We also have our pawns in advanced positions on the light squares, d5 and f5, so they're kind of blocking out the f1 bishop's potential as opposed to this one, which has more open squares to work with. This attack now has got h5 in. The h5 is actually quite clever because it looks like he can take, and we've got two isolated pawns, but actually both of these can potentially be very good because of with the king position on g8, it means that we can push h6 or f6, and both will be, you know, strong attacking moves, where black can't do anything to stop the trade. Kind of, it's very attacking, and it's allowing us to play more positionally as well because it fixes our pawn structure a bit. I guess the queen h4 has meant that you can pick up the h5 pawn, but it's risky. Fuzion is just going with rook g1, doubling up the rooks. So you'd imagine he's going to take on f6 now to open up these rooks, and after bishop takes f6, you can go for some bishop h6 move, maybe. I guess rook d7 there. He might want to play queen g2 first, or takes and then queen g2, because the threat then becomes something like g6 instead, and then if black takes, he can actually get trapped via, you know, a rook to the h-file. Rook c4 is played, the idea to swing to h6, but Fuzion's actually going for this immediately, and he's going to be able to take on g7 now, because obviously black can't take because of this. And now he gets to check on the back rank, and here's the opportunity to penetrate, basically. He might want to try a different move. He could have played, for example, rook a7 there, and then you've been threatening queen g8 mate. As is, he's gone for this route, which means that black can kind of escape down the back, but maybe not so easily. Maybe you should just take this rook, and then queen g8 check, and then wherever the king goes, queen e6 threatens a lot. It threatens to take the bishop, the d6 pawn, also threatens this rook along the back rank. This is probably very good. We also have bishop b6 at points. Even just bishop b6 by itself immediately might be good, because it forces black to do something with this rook, where the obvious thing is to trade with this one, and that again brings this queen in. This way, probably a little more accurate though, because it's more forcing. You can do the bishop e6 now with check, but then to the 7th rank, king d7, we can't do anything forcing with the queen, so I'd probably play the queen check as forcing, and then, you know, the difference is that you can go to c7, but... So yeah, maybe this is better, with the idea that queen d7, queen g8 is strong. Maybe queen e8 has to be played there, and then we can probably play queen e6 check, which would force the trade, and it would connect our pawns again, and one of them would be a very strong passer on the 6th rank, so it looks like that's what he's going for. Only 30 seconds though, so... one thing I haven't liked about playing on fix recently is the lag. I mean, you can see in this game, this is 5 minutes. This guy is 36 seconds lag in this game. Fusion's 9. When I play... Okay, so he's gone for the rook trade. I'm not sure about that. Because now just queen to block. I think that was miscalculation there. He should have gone for this queen e6 check like I suggested before. Would have been stronger. As is, he's got to defend against the back rank mates now, as well as try and do something with his pawn. I think just his time's got too low, really. He should play something to get room for his king. But now he's in real trouble because this back rank also hits the queen. So I think he's let it slip, just in the time pressure. So now he's losing his queen. So yeah, no way back this time. Not the best of tournaments so far. But you know, this happens sometimes. Especially that he knows I'm watching and I'm doing a commentary. It's, it can mess things up a lot.
Sigh. Where was the mates?
I don't know. It was, I thought after your queen g8, because I like the bishop b6 stuff, maybe you could have played queen e6, and then you kind of force his queen trade, but also you're taking on e6 with one of the pawns with check, and like, it's going to be a pass, so it's not mate, but, you know, you have a passer on the 6th rank, and he's kind of tied up. And then maybe after, say, taking with the f pawn, takes an e6 check, you have stuff like rook f1 or rook h1.
It's like move 28, I have like rook a7 and stuff.
Yeah, I said rook a7 then, but...
Okay, new game.
Okay, good lucks.
Thanks.
Okay, so I think this is the final round now. So it's 2 out of 4. Which is 50%, although he did get by in the first round, so he needs to show us a win here. Taking on c6 here is kind of rubbish as white. You just give up central control, so you have one less central pawn now. You're also moving black's knight to a better position here, you just play knight d5. I mean, I guess c4 is the natural follow-up, but this is kind of all over the place. Your pawns are too advanced, and you've already given up one of your attacking pieces, so you have no central control. You've opened up the b file for black, because you can play rook b8 now at any point, and we kind of gain this whole file compared to the white rook, which has no space. So I personally just take white in all these positions. Queen b6 is played, you can play this. Attacks b2 is probably a good reaction to bishop d2, which I think is way too early. I guess the idea of bishop d2 is knight c3 and then take it with the c-pawn, but I don't get why you do that. So now b3 has been, you know, kind of forced out, and I'd just be going for some g6, bishop d7 move. This diagonal's weak because of b3 move. This pawn is potentially vulnerable. We can attack it via d6 later on without doing anything bad to our pawn structure. Can threaten to open up this bishop. Castle, we're very safe. I don't like e6. e6 doesn't work well with g6 basically. I guess I have an over bias towards g6 bishop g7 lines just because I'm used to playing them so much as a former dragon player. But here I just see backwards d pawn when white's got a semi-open d file. Against bishop c4 I'd probably have wanted to play something like bishop a6 as well, to trade off this bishop. You can still do it now. You might have thought bishop c5 was better there because it was with tempo, but I think white was just going to castle anyway. So we'd have had more, I guess, options with this bishop. Could have also put it on e7, but as it is, he's played it to d4, which was a good move because he's managed to fork this knight and this pawn, which is something that I missed. So yeah, I'm missing quite a bit, but it is really hard to commentate at this speed and talk through ideas at the same time. So bishop is under attack here. This e6 move is no longer as much of an issue because we can still play d6 and d5 again because there's no e5 pawn. Queen c7 played. I would definitely take the c pawn here because we're not castled yet. Semi-open c-file, this pawn can be weak. And just drop back to f6 now. This bishop keeps the pressure on the c3 pawn. If he plays f5, we're not worried because we can recapture with the d pawn, undevelop pawn structure. Queen c5 was pointless there. I don't get why we did that. The king on h1 is, I would say safer, given that the f pawn's been open, so I might have wanted to keep that check open for later on. I just castle here. Bishop a6 is also playable. I'd say those are the main two options. Because you see, in this position, if we castle, g4, g5 can come quickly, and if we hadn't played queen c5, that would be a much more vulnerable king. White should really be going for that kind of pressure, given he's lost material already. Here we can actually play, well, I was going to say we could play bishop c3, but it is risky because of after rook c1. d4 is the idea to protect it, but then we can't get back to f6, so pawn to f6 could have been strong for white. Maybe a risk we don't want to go for. Maybe just taking is the safest. And then after queen takes, we play f6 ourselves, and then we can play e5, and white's attack's pretty much just stopped. I really hope this recording comes out because it's like over 40 minutes of recording. Do let us know if you're enjoying it. This is late night Blitz, kind of. Except Fusion's not really on it much. We're actually hoping to do a lot more stuff like this. f6 mistake here because queen would hang. You can take d4 now. f6 we made it via. I think f6 here would have been very awkward for black to deal with because the mate. So after g6, queen h6. The queen actually can't get back, so that might have actually been a mate if white had been willing to sack his a1 rook. Black should play queen f6 now, just get rid of the queens and you're in a great position. As it is, he's playing very riskily, but you can still play it back now. He has to give up the d-pawn in the process though. I think he thought he was a bigger advantage than he was. And by being a bit greedy, he's kind of cost himself a bit there. Here white should have just taken this pawn, because if black takes here he's got triple pawns, they're not really worth much. As is, fusion's up a pawn, it's double, but it's still central and passed, so he's still at a bit of an advantage, I think. Rook d7 seems the most obvious to me for white, because we don't really want to play rook a7 to defend. So I'm not sure how we deal with that. Maybe we just ignore it and go for something like rook c2, some counter-attack. Or maybe we would just suck it up and play rook a7. Maybe the best move. Then we just move our bishop next move, say bishop b5, covers this square, and then we can play a6 to protect, and then we can think about penetrating the d or c files, whichever white isn't really occupying. As is, he's going for this way. I considered it at start, and it pins this rook down. So if I consider it, it's generally reasonable, just off kind of an intuition, but then after thinking about it a bit, I went back to this rook move, so it does not surprise me at all that Fusion played this, because he pretty much always takes the aggressive option, which can mean that his games are very interesting to watch, and it's quite fun and stuff, but at the same time, although he gets some good wins out of it, I feel like he also loses some games he should have drawn, loses some games he should have won because of it. Probably overall it evens out, but definitely situations where it's better to do it than otherwise. And here I would have definitely gone for that. Because here it's just risky, because these two connected pass pawns are a lot faster than these ones, I feel. You see, this is a good move, because if white's super tempted and off pre-moves this, we have back rank mate. As it is, I think he can... Yeah, this was not great from white, because that's a kind of pointless move. Now he's forced into this rook g1. If he kept this rook on h file, it would have been better, because he could have just started pushing these pawns faster, which I think would have been very awkward for white to deal with. Black to deal with, rather. But we'll see. I mean, now fuzion could... he should have picked up this pawn straight away, just to prevent the, fast attack. I guess he's going for this f-pawn push here, but now white can play a4, and then after f4 he can play rook d3, which kind of covers it, so... Yeah, I guess the idea after that would just be move the king up and then push e5, e4. Should bring something, just because white is so tied down, which is the advantage of these getting the rooks to the second rank moves, but yeah. King g7 now, where you can play h6. I'd have played king g7 because I don't care about my h-pawn position, but I want my king more advanced in general anyway. If we play king g7, they're also threatening king f6 to g5 to just take this pawn off later on. As is, I think fuzion's going to win on time. But I'd say this is now a winning position anyway, just because his rooks are so active. And after f3, well, okay, now it's, white's kind of planning his own second rank stuff maybe, but it's not going to work. He should play f3 now to support the rook here. Yeah, okay, he's done it this way, which is fine, and then this is mate next move. Don't think there's any way that can be stopped really, so it's a win on time, but it would have been a winning position. Okay, so let's bring him on.
Yeah!
Yay. I thought you were doing a lot better earlier on.
Yeah, me too. I was like, oh dear, I have to take it to an end game.
Yeah, I thought let's just check. Yeah, he had basically a fourth mate after queen takes d4, if he just sacked his rook. Because he could have played f6. And then after g6, queen h6, and you can't actually defend it, which would have been super annoying. But, yeah.
Oh, that's annoying.
But yeah,
I lost my way somewhere.
Yeah, I don't like e6 in combination with already playing c6 and his pawn on e5. I'd have just played like g6, bishop g7 castles, and I think we're like completely safe. Just because your stuff gets all a bit stuck queenside.
I should have picked up the pawn on like move 6. Queen f5 check.
Oh yeah, I missed that. But yeah,
Oh,
that
me
would
too.
be best. Yeah.
Or put my knight on e4, and then in all of the other lines that follow, I made him. Yay!
Yeah, I said this knight c6 wasn't great. So, how would you assess your performance overall? I guess you got 3 out of 5, right?
Oh yeah, it's finished. Oh, did I? I have no idea what I got. It was
Oh,
terrible.
if you got a... Didn't you?
I got half point by.
Oh, okay.
So, TD grid. Probably finished. Oh, I got it. TD grid. Oh no, TD the standings. So, oh, who knows? Let's just
Well, if
say
I
I
look
suck.
at your last 4 games...
Yeah, I got 2.5,
Okay.
and the winner got 4.5.
Okay. Well, it's fine. You can listen to the commentary, and it seems very rushed, but hopefully it's...
That's the play-by-play, right?
Yeah. Maybe I
Was
do
it?
too much
Was it good quality commentary?
I don't know.
Do you think the fans enjoyed it?
We'll see.
Are you still recording?
Yes.
Sup, folks?
Okay. Bye.
Bye.